Information shared on the following program is for general information purposes only. It does not constitute legal, tax, investment, or other advice, nor is it intended to recommend any particular investments, products, or financial instruments. Always seek advice from your financial advisor, attorney, or accountant with regard to investment, legal, or tax questions.
Welcome to the only show in the country dedicated to helping savers worry less about money, the Worry-Free Retirement, with your host, retirement specialist and six-time author and fiduciary, Tony Walker.
In the year of our Lord 2025, it has come to the attention of most in the financial world of something that we at Tony Walker Financial have known for years, and that is the huge wave of baby boomers, known by some as the Silver Tsunami, today retiring in droves. In fact, as of the date of this recording on January 21st, 2025, it is estimated that over 11,000 baby boomers are turning 65 each and every day. Now that's a lot of boomers who the financial world are going to invite to dinner. Yet while thousands of savers are approaching retirement, the question I hear most often from the hundreds of savers I meet each year is, when can I retire? Which today, we're about to answer that question. Well, welcome folks to the Worry-Free Retirement. And yes, I am that little man in the sweater vest, retirement planning specialist and full-time fiduciary, Tony Walker. And before we share with you when to retire, let me introduce two young lads in the Worry-Free Studios who better not think of retiring anytime soon. America's favorite financial sidekick, Mr. Aaron Orander, along with Louisville, Kentucky's most laid-back graphics artist, Mr. Derek Hudson. Okay, let's imagine you are watching this show and you are one of the thousands of baby boomers who are thinking of pulling the ripcord on work and retiring. When should you retire? And more specifically, is there a time of the year that might be best suited for you and your specific situation at work? You see, like most things in life, timing is everything. And so to time out and factor in when to retire is a key to calling it quits for retirement. Which is why today I'm going to take a deep dive into things you will need to consider during the year and which dates might be best suited for your specific situation, as well as what I've learned from other retirees who might have wished they'd picked a different date. So stay tuned as I cover the best time to retire on today's program of the Worry-Free Retirement. I'm Tony Walker. We will be right back. Do you own an annuity purchased prior to 2015? If so, you may be missing out on the many benefits that modern-day annuities can offer. You know, over the years, things have certainly changed in the world of finance, and guess what? Annuities have too. To learn more about the modern-day annuities we offer at Tony Walker Financial, why don't you log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com and let's get started, or call 877-499-9255.
Hi, I'm Trey Juergens, full-time fiduciary here in the Louisville office. Coming up with today's show topic, actually it was just a funny observation we've made with several of our retirees actually retiring on April 1st. Kind of got a kick out of the whole idea of someone working 30, 40 years for their boss only to tell them they're retiring on April Fool's Day. So it's just fascinating, someone working their entire career to actually have to come down to one specific day to retire on. Hope you enjoy today's show.
Welcome back to the Worry-Free Retirement, and it's interesting that while we at Tony Walker Financial assist retirees or those looking to retire soon with their money, and of course when to retire in terms of a particular year, sometimes that question of when to retire falls into something called the certain time of year. It's something people don't think about all the time, and that is this: when during the year is it most advantageous to retire? We've broken this down into 5 different phases as to when someone might want to retire at any point, and let's start with those. First of all, there's what we call the end of the year. We might say December 31st. This is when you might have a full year of salary, you can maximize your income for the year, might include any year-end bonuses or raises that the employer is going to give you, contributions to your 401k or pension. Again, sometimes it is best for people to actually retire in December 31st, being at the end of the year. In addition, at the end of the year, pension and Social Security benefits can sometimes start at the first of the year following the end of the year, making it easier to think through planning and cash flow needs as well. Number 2, we call this the end of the month or quarter so that there's no income gap. In fact, most pensions and Social Security payments sometimes will begin at the start of the following month, minimizing any interruption in income. Employer health benefits. Sometimes employer-sponsored health plans go through the end of a month. So again, sometimes it's best to pick a particular month, retire at the end of the month, and retire at what we call the end of a quarter. Transversely, beginning of the month allows for the potential of keeping health insurance benefits through another month prior to maybe starting Medicare. Then we have phase 3, which is mid-year retirement. In many cases, there may be a lower tax bracket issue because maybe you're only accepting income through June 30th, for instance. The total income can be then spread out over all calendar years, potentially lowering your tax bracket for the year you retire and then even the following year following retirement. That's a time where we can set up systematic withdrawals, which is what we do for our retirees at Tony Walker Financial. There's the flexibility of personal plans. You also sometimes can avoid the year-end rush when everybody else is trying to retire so that you can retire during a period of time also when weather tends to be a little better. In fact, I just had a gentleman that just retired as we record this show in January just a few weeks ago, and he dropped by and he said, "Tony, I'm about to go crazy. The weather's awful. I can't get out and do anything." He said, "This was a terrible time to retire." If that is the case for you, let's say you retire in the middle of winter, you might want to schedule ahead a time to take a trip to some warmer weather just to enjoy yourself and, again, usher in retirement on a positive winter weather note, if you know what I'm talking about. Phase number 4 is what we call the after-work anniversary. For instance, let's say you started it with your employer on September 15th. Well, that could be a milestone for things like pension credits. Sometimes bonuses are based on years of service. So in order to maximize your years of service, sometimes you might retire in the anniversary of the year you started with your employer. Then we get to number 5. Boy, this is a doozy. We call this government milestones. Now, for whatever reason, politicians love to grab these arbitrary ages, so let's go over a few that are very, very important and make sure you're working with a retirement planner that understands the complexities and the importance and the ramifications of these various ages. We've got the first age, which is 59 and a half. That's when you can take penalty-free withdrawals from that tax-infested 401k or IRA of yours. Also 59 and a half is an age that you can sometimes go ahead and roll that 401k over to someone like Tony Walker Financial and still be working with your employer. The next age is age 62. That's the earliest you can claim Social Security benefits. The next major milestone is age 65. That's when you're eligible for Medicare and possibly even a Medicare supplement. The next milestone, age 66 or 67, now that's called your full retirement age. This depends on your date of birth, but that's the age that you can draw full Social Security and you can work and make as much money as you want anywhere else without it being offset. And then the final age that really throws people off is age 70. That's the age of Social Security when that's the latest you can delay Social Security. Another magical age is age 73. That's the age called the required minimum distribution that you must draw money out of that tax-infested IRA or 401k, which we can help with that as well. So maybe that's you right now. Maybe you're thinking about retirement. You haven't really chosen a date, but you need to start planning for that date. Why don't you do this right now? Why don't you log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com, click on that Let's Get Started. Let's talk by phone with something we call the free 10-minute fiduciary phone call. And of course, as always, if the internet's not your thing, give us a call anytime at 877-499-9255. Well, when we return, let's imagine you're thinking about working with Tony Walker Financial. You and I have met in person, but what happens when you decide to roll over that 401k over to us? Well, we've got some special guests coming in the studio. You stay tuned. I'm Tony Walker. I'll be right back. Have you recently retired, been laid off, or offered a buyout? Has the company you work for moved, been acquired, or closed its doors forever? And finally, do you have a 401k with a previous employer you'd like to move to safer territory? Then take advantage of this opportunity to move your 401k or lump sum pension to Tony Walker Financial. Let's meet in person to discuss your retirement options. Log on now to TonyWalkerFinancial.com to schedule your free, no obligation appointment. Let us help you today.
You know, Heather, I think back to 2006. Is that when you started? Okay, I think I hired you for like tax planning. Was that your title then? Something like that.
It was financial research coordinator, I think. It took me a minute to think of that.
Well, I've been in the business so long up until then, and I understood the need for tax planning, but we really didn't have any strategic plans. We didn't have a department. Speak to, as we fast forward now to 2024, our tax planning department and the role they play behind the scenes. I don't think people realize how much work they do, but the importance of the role they play behind the scenes at no additional charge. We don't charge for these services, but for our clients of Tony Walker Financial.
Right. I think you originally hired me, like you said, for essentially some tax planning. I had a background in accounting. Right now, our tax planning department consists of TJ Reagan and Leanne Tinsley. And there's so many tax issues in retirement. I think people are just like, oh, you pay your taxes. But it does change with retirement in between required minimum distributions, possible Roth conversions, legacy planning, estate planning. There are so many issues that are involved in your retirement as far as taxes go. And to have two full-time people on staff that can answer those questions, and they work, as you mentioned, they work behind the scenes. There's a lot of tax planning inside the plans that we present to potential clients. They may not see that initially, but it's in there. And because we're trying to be proactive as much as we can on tax issues that may come their way.
And then also, I think what a lot of people don't realize, I had some clients, prospective clients yesterday, they're moving forward. And the lady, she was so funny. She said, so make sure I understand this. Really what you're going to be doing is taking over the paycheck we were getting. You're taking all the taxes out and all that. So speak to our tax planning department, too, how we hone in. Not only are we just going to send them money so they can continue to enjoy retirement, we're also doing all the calculations, the withholdings, all that. How does that process work?
Yes. So that's one of the things we do even look at when we're preparing a plan. Especially TJ, he does look at what we're projecting income to be. And then based on current tax brackets, of course, we can try to guess at future, but good luck. But then we look at those tax brackets that they will be currently in given projected income. And also that will factor in if we're looking at Roth conversions, trying to stay within their current tax bracket and things of that nature. So it's a great service to have, and not every advisor has that ability to do that.
Looking for an advisor you can trust? Schedule your free phone call with Tony at TonyWalkerFinancial.com or call 1-877-499-9255.
Hi, this is Lisa here at Tony Walker Financial with a common Social Security question. If you are not yet full retirement age, plan to retire and begin your Social Security benefits mid-year, will your earnings that year affect your Social Security benefit? If you began your Social Security benefit prior to full retirement age, normally you will be subject to the annual earnings test limit of $23,400. However, in your first year of retirement, for example, if you do retire mid-year and begin your Social Security benefit at that time, you can use the annual earnings test or the monthly earnings test, whichever is to your advantage. For the monthly earnings test, in the year that you retire, you can earn any amount prior to the month you begin your benefit, as long as you earn less than the monthly limit of $1,950 in each individual month after beginning your benefit and through the end of the calendar year. Your benefit amount will not be affected.
Welcome back to the Worry-Free Retirement. Our theme today is when to retire, and specifically a time of year to do that. So we're going to role play a little bit. With us in the studios is three of our amigos that handle all the service aspects when somebody decides to retire and move their assets over to Tony Walker Financial. So we have Juanita Jackson to my left, Mr. Craig Davis, and Beth Wisman. So thank you for joining us. All right, we'll start with you, Beth. Let's say I've met with somebody and they're like, yes, I love this plan. I want to roll over our 401k to Tony Walker Financial. Usually I have you involved in the process at the very beginning. Tell us those first steps.
So the first step is that either they will onboard in the office or I will give them a call. We will gather all their information, their name, address, beneficiary information, any documentation that we may need as far as statements, voided checks, driver's license, get that information so that the Charles Schwab and the annuity departments know what assets are coming over and how to get those transferred in.
And tell us briefly, why is it so important to have full statements up front as best we can before we start transferring assets?
That way we can make sure we have exactly who the owner is, what the assets are, and make sure it's an in-kind transfer so that everything goes smoothly from the start.
So now you've collected all the basic data. Then we kind of turn it over to Juanita. Juanita, explain your role in the process at this point.
So once Beth has onboarded and gotten that information to us, I'm taking a look at the income plan to evaluate it for the types of assets that we're going to be receiving. It might be pre-tax, after-tax, non-qualified, and she's determining whether we have the statements, and I'm letting her know if we have what we need because we're trying to assess those to determine if there are any trade fees. We want to do the most cost-effective thing for the client, and it's not cookie-cutter. Each one is different. They have their unique plan. And so we're taking a look at that, generating the list of documents. I usually already know how they'd like to sign or more comfortable signing, whether they'll be coming in or signing electronically, and then we'll generate those for signature. And if they're in person, we'll also be including a security document with some personal questions because it's very important to us to verify their identity when they call in to discuss their account. So we'll have that on file, and once they sign the documents and we've determined what types of assets we're receiving, it's probably going to get turned over to Craig for a rollover.
Very good. So yeah, Craig, so let's say we go through those steps. Now they're ready for that rollover call. Explain how that works, any apprehension they might have or concerns when you do a rollover call as well.
The apprehension, normally people say, well, maybe they're out, they're at work, or hey, even sometimes in the car. They say, I don't have statements, and I say, generally, everything we need, we already have here. The things you need at this point are just going to be ththings you already know. They're going to maybe ask you some security questions or send a text code to your telephone. So those kinds of things. Another thing, they'll sometimes, one spouse or the other tends to handle more of the finances. And so maybe the husband will say, well, my wife's handling all of that. Give her a call. But we have to have the account holder on the line while we're making that call, and they have to stay on the whole time.
Okay. And so let's say all that goes successful as planned, and they get ready to send a check. The check, usually they bring it by the office or whatever, the paper check. It's rollover and made payable to Charles Schwab in that example. What do you do with that check, Juanita?
So once we receive either a check or possibly a transfer of incoming assets that I'm notified, we track those daily to make sure that they're on track and nothing's gone wrong. Once we receive those, they're going to hear from Shannon in our trading department. She's going to call and confirm the details of the transaction with them, confirm once again the investment strategy they selected to make sure they haven't changed their mind or don't need to talk to a fiduciary. And then at that point, if there were any assets in the income plan that are going to an annuity, she'll notify that department that they are prepared to go.
And I am so confident in your all's work, and you do such a great job. We appreciate it so much. So, again, thank you for all you do. And, folks, if you have a 401k you'd like to roll over, we're well equipped and ready to handle that. We'll be right back. Having worked in the retirement planning field for 40 years, I know it's not just about how much money you've saved for retirement, but making sure you one day don't run out of money. That's where mailbox money comes in.
Mailbox money!
A reliable, lifelong income, much like the pension plans from the past. If you're interested in turning your 401k into mailbox money, let's talk. Just set up your free 10-minute phone call with myself at TonyWalkerFinancial.com. That's TonyWalkerFinancial.com.
The individuals in this interview are uncompensated clients at the time of filming. Their opinions expressed were provided to Worry Free Productions for use as an advertisement by Tony Walker Financial. Please refer to Form CRS and Form ADV Part 2B disclosure brochure for information regarding the advisory services offered by Tony Walker Financial.
Our client spotlight features today Larry and Elaine Mitchum. And Larry and Elaine, it's been so good to have you with us, and thank you for joining us.
It's a pleasure always to come out and meet with you, Tony. We've enjoyed the relationship over the last several years, without a doubt.
Well, let's go back to that. So first of all, tell me what you did for a living.
I was a pesky insurance man. I was in it for about 40 years, but dealt primarily with property liability and workers' comp for public entities. And the majority of our business for me was working with boards of educations, but also city and county governments and political subdivisions, water district health departments, and traveled throughout Kentucky for about 35 years before I get to that point.
And Elaine, you did not work outside the household, correct?
Well, I worked when I was younger, but then when we met, I didn't have to work because he made all the money. So that was good, and it helps. It helped us be with the grandkids more, and do what we wanted to do at church and all those things. So
that's wonderful.
Yeah.
And so, remind me, how did you find out about Tony Walker Financial?
Well, I tell you what, we didn't really have an interest, but when we got to that point where we saw the light at the end of the tunnel of getting to a point of considering retirement, first of all, was a blessing, and boy, did those years go fast before they got there. And then it's like, okay, hey, we're really going to have to start looking at what we want to do because, like I said, we had been blessed, and I've seen a couple commercials on TV with that. And then I think we had just talked to Elaine, and now let's watch one of his episodes that he has, one of his shows. And so we did that. And then we were always touched and encouraged by your openness of expressing your faith, because we gave our life to Jesus and God years ago. And I have always had to say I'm a walking, living proof that the good Lord takes care of those that can't take care of themselves.
For sure.
And then he said to submit in all things. So this was one that we prayed about. And even though we had been working with somebody else and generating our retirement savings, I had just seen him show up in ways where he has tried to direct us and give us a message of maybe that. And just after watching your shows, Elaine and I talked about, let's just at least go out and listen to what he has to say. And that's when we called to schedule an appointment to come out and visit with you, just to hear, your philosophy of getting it. And I loved your ideas for live well and die broke. Maybe I'm trying to follow your advice in that one right there. I promise you that.
So, Mitchum's, one of the things that's exciting, since you've retired, you're not really retiring, you've just taken on a separate vocation. Tell us a little bit about the ministry.
I took quite a few lefts in the game of life. Been clean from drugs now for about 35 years and alcohol about 15 years. And being members of Fairdale Christian Church, another guy had started to Celebrate Recovery. And it's just it's a substance abuse program, not just substance abuse, but dealing with hurt, habits, and hang-ups of individuals that are struggling with life challenges. And it's a faith-based program for recovery to deal with those so that you can face them and get on with a life and facing challenges. And as we have a saying, our plaque above our deck out there is that life's not about waiting for the storm to pass, it's learning to dance in the rain. That we've understood through his word, we're going to face trials and tribulations, but we do have a choice in how we respond to those trials.
Now, I got to ask you, Elaine, now that you've been a client, you and your husband, of Tony Walker Financial, how would you surmise your experience, not only just getting to meet me and getting a game plan, but working more specifically with the staff here?
I think they've been wonderful. I mean, we can call anytime, and they always get back with us right away if they can't at that time. And that's important. That's real important to us to do that, to be able to know that we can call at any time and they're right there for us. And it's been wonderful.
I think it's been a benefit for us, too, not just the professionalism, but the attitude from which they deal with. And like I said, we can feel the joy out here without a doubt.
Yeah.
We're talking about the joy that transcends all understanding. And just to partner with those, like I said, it makes it worthwhile.
Well, I'll take that as a compliment. And, of course, it's joyful to work with clients like you, too. So congratulations on your retirement and also your continued passion for other people. Yeah. So we appreciate your business.
We're having the time of our life.
Yeah, we are.
Looking for an advisor you can trust? Schedule your free phone call with Tony at TonyWalkerFinancial.com or call 1-877-499-9255.
Are you retired or retiring soon? Do you have a 401k, IRA, 403b, thrift savings account, or lump sum pension that you'd like to move to safer territory? Did you know that all the money you see on your 401k statement isn't really yours? Depending on your overall taxable income, the government has essentially a lien on your 401k that can tax as much as 40% of your money when you go to take it out. Tony Walker calls this the 401k tax tumor. For almost 40 years, retirement specialist Tony Walker has helped thousands of savers worry less about money by creating game plans to deal with your tax tumor. Get control of your retirement by controlling the taxes owed on it. Schedule a free meeting to see if you can reduce your tax tumor and provide a guaranteed income you can never outlive. To get started, simply log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. That's TonyWalkerFinancial.com.
Last week in our Bowling Green offices, a nice couple who recently decided to do business with Tony Walker Financial dropped by to sign some additional paperwork needed to complete the rollover from her previous employer's 401k plan to Tony Walker Financial. As I walked around the corner to greet them, I commented that something about her looked different, to which she asked, "Well, what do you mean?" I responded, "I don't know. You just have a very relaxed, calm look about you and a radiant smile I don't recall seeing in our previous meetings prior to your retirement." With a slightly shocked look on her face, she quickly turned to her husband and then looked back at me and said, "Was it that obvious how stressed out I was at work?" And maybe that's you right now. You're either burned out or stressed out at work like never before. Chalk it up to a changed work environment since the disastrous lockdowns due to COVID. Or maybe simply the notion that more and more workers I meet are, for whatever reason, being worked to death. Many savers who approach me are like this recent retiree. They are simply stressed to the max and wanting to know if now is the time to retire or, in my humble opinion, if they should keep working. You know, retirement in the 21st century is a funny thing. Unlike Granddad's day, when you simply called it quits and drew your pension and Social Security for the rest of your life, a guaranteed lifetime income we refer to as
mailbox money.
Today's complicated retirement looks nothing like the simple retirement back in the day of Granddad. That's because of all of the many factors Granddad never had to deal with. Mainly all the taxes you'll have to pay on that tax-infested 401k of yours. Add to this mystery of how much you'll need in retirement and who to trust with your life savings, with more and more advisors jumping into the field of retirement planning, as well as every Tom, Dick, and Harry on the internet giving you pointless advice on topics that may or may not apply to you. As I see it, there is more confusion than ever before in the hearts and minds of savers who are looking for someone they can trust. A retirement planning firm that actually has experience in the art of retirement planning and willing to sit down and meet with you in person so that you can understand your options both now and, of course, long into retirement. And just like our newfound client who is glowing from ear to ear, you might be that person who is ripe for our services at Tony Walker Financial. So let me take a quick second just to tell you who we are best suited to serve. First of all, we tend to serve the needs of those folks who I refer to as savers. These are people who, as I like to say, are much more concerned about the return of their money than the return on it. Number two, Tony Walker Financial tends to work with savers who are basically at a point in life, of course usually at retirement, where they simply want somebody they can trust to, as they put it, handle everything, which we do at Tony Walker Financial. We are a full-service retirement planning firm, and when we say we're going to handle everything, we are going to handle it. Number three, we are looking for those savers out there who have quite a bit of money in what's called pre-tax accounts. That might be an IRA, a 401k, 403b, or thrift savings account. And of course, it could even include lump sum pensions. The reason we focus on clients with these type of accounts is since we have an in-house tax planning department who can assist our clients at no charge. We are there to help make sure that you keep more of your money in your pocket rather than sending it to Uncle Sam. So here's my thoughts. If you're retired or thinking of whether or not you have enough money to retire now or if you should keep working, let's at least start with a phone call, something we call the free 10-minute fiduciary phone call. To get started talking to me in person, again, there's no cost or obligation. I would suggest you go to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. There's going to be a little Let's Get Started button. When you click on that, that's going to go to our offices, and we are going to arrange that phone call to see if we can be of service. Internet not your thing? No problem. Just call us anytime, 877-499-9255.
Well, that's all the time we have for today's show, but you remember between now and next week, if all else fails, you be worry-free and you make it a good one.